Sean Brady, wow, take a bow. This man just did to Leon Edwards what no other man has ever been able to do in Edwards' near 30-fight professional MMA career, and that was finish him. And he did that with a guillotine choke in the 4th round, but not before dominating this fight from minute 1 to minute 17. I'm just going to be completely honest. While I didn't have a clear lean on who was going to win this fight, to me it felt like a true coin flip between Leon Edwards and Sean Brady. I would have never imagined a one-sided beating like we saw take place in the main event of UFC London, where Sean Brady absolutely had his way with the former champion, more so than anyone else has ever had before. And that includes Kamaru Usman, who beat Leon Edwards back in 2015, and that includes Belal Muhammad, who beat Leon Edwards in July of last year to become the new champion of the world. And while yes, Belal looked better than he had ever looked before in that title-winning shot at UFC 304 last year, this here from Sean Brady was that Belal Muhammad performance turned up another 3 notches. This was unbelievable. It was a true display of everything that Sean Brady encompasses in a mixed martial arts game, in his skill sets. On the feet, he was winning the exchanges. And in the grappling and wrestling realm, it wasn't even competitive. It wasn't even close. The Leon Edwards takedown defense that had seemingly gotten better over the years with so many big-time matchups against great wrestlers like Kamaru Usman, like Colby Covington, like Belal Muhammad. It just was not here in this fight against Brady, where he would go 5 of 7, racking up 11 minutes of control time, outlanding in terms of striking on the feet and with the ground strikes. Leon Edwards, 221 to 23. This is a title shot earning performance if I've ever seen one. To do what Sean Brady just did to a former champion on short notice, just over a month of time to prepare for this fight after having his daughter be born just days before accepting this fight to travel across the world to London, it's ultra impressive. I can't say more about how highly I feel of Sean Brady in the aftermath of this fight. He's 32 years old, so he is right in his prime. He's 18-1 overall with 9 finishes and 9 decisions, and 6 of those 9 finishes are by way of submission. And part of that thanks to this victory over Leon Edwards in the biggest opportunity and spot of Sean Brady's career. It was his 2nd UFC main event. The other one was against Gilbert Burns, a former title challenger, where he dominated him over the course of a 25-minute decision, where he also displayed his full arsenal of skills, showed a lot of improvements on the feet, and of course went back to the well of his wrestling and grappling in that bout as well. All in all, he's on a 3-fight win streak. He's 8-1 now in the UFC, and the only loss for him in the UFC, the only loss for him as a professional mixed martial artist, well, it's to Belal Muhammad, the champion of the world right now in this welterweight division, and that was where Belal actually finished Sean Brady via strikes back in October of 2022 at UFC 280. And now we've come full circle because they have both been able to main event and face Leon Edwards. They have both been able to dominate Leon Edwards. One of them was able to become the champion of the world. One of them was able to do what the other had not done, and that was finish Leon Edwards. And now the champion of the world, Belal Muhammad, reigns supreme with a title fight coming up in May against Jack Della Maddalena, and the other in Sean Brady, come Tuesday morning, will have the number 1 ranking in the world at 170 pounds. But the problem for Sean Brady is that even though this was a title-earning performance if I've ever seen one, a dominant, one-sided victory over the former champion Leon Edwards, he will not be next in line to face the winner of that UFC 315 fight between Jack Della Maddalena and Belal Muhammad, and that is because Shavkat Rakhmonov is waiting in the wings. Shavkat Rakhmonov is the rightful next fighter against the winner of Muhammad versus Maddalena. Now, could you make the argument that Sean Brady should have surpassed Shavkat Rakhmonov after this performance? Absolutely, and I'd be open to hearing it, but to me, Shavkat has done everything there is to do and then some. He is undefeated, only ever gone the distance one time. When he had a title fight against Belal Muhammad slated to be in December of 2024, Belal had to withdraw due to injury. Shavkat didn't want to wait around. Shavkat didn't want to be pulled from the card. Instead, he chose to stay on the card. Instead, he chose to not even fight for an interim title, but to just fight a number 1 contender fight, even though he had already earned that number 1 contender name next to his, and he took on the other undefeated prospect in this division, that is Ian Machado Gary. And although it was a back and forth affair, although it was highly competitive, although Shavkat didn't get a finish like he had done against every single other opponent in his career, he did get the nod. He got the victory via decision, where we saw him go 25 minutes for the first time in his career. He's answered the call time and time again, and he's put it all on the line and still passed with flying colors. That is why Shavkat Rakhmonov should still face the winner of the UFC 315 main event. But what does that mean for Sean Brady? Well, to be quite honest with you, in my opinion, Sean Brady could just sit and wait. After doing this to Leon Edwards, after beating Gilbert Burns, after starching Kelvin Gastelum, this 3-fight win streak that he is on, having ever only lost once in his career to the current champion Belal Muhammad, I think he can absolutely wait for the winner of UFC 315 to face Shavkat, and whoever wins that matchup would get to face Sean Brady in the next title fight. But knowing about Sean Brady and his passion for this sport and his mindset around this sport, hearing what Sean Brady has to say in the aftermath of this fight, in the lead up to this fight, he is more than willing to not sit around and wait, but to put his record and his number one spot in the world on the line solely for the sake of remaining active and relevant instead of sidelining himself. And I'm going to be honest, I respect it, but it's a dangerous game to play. And honestly, what do you even do with Sean Brady if he were to fight again solely for the fact of remaining active and not waiting on the sidelines for 2 additional fights to play out that would ultimately not have him fight again until probably this time in 2026? Well, really the only option that makes sense, I guess you could say there's 2, would be either Kamaru Usman, the former champion who's been out for quite some time but seems to be wanting to stay active, wanting to chase the title one more time before he calls it a career, or the surging prospect that is kind of rose alongside of Sean Brady, rose alongside Shavkat, rose alongside of Ian Machado Gary, Joaquin Buckley, coming off of a massive victory in December against a wrestler and a grappler known as Colby Chaos Covington. So I want to hear from you all in the comments below. How do you think the welterweight title picture plays out in the aftermath of UFC London? With the title fight happening in May between Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena, and a seemingly lined up opponent for the winner of that in Shavkat Rakhmonov, maybe to take place around October, November, December at the end of 2025. What do you do if you're Sean Brady? Do you wait for the next 2 title fights as he has earned the rightful opportunity to do so? Or if you're Sean Brady, do you want to just stay active? Do you want to take one more fight and risk putting your number 1 spot in the world on the line, risk putting your momentum and win streak on the line? And if you choose the latter and you choose to fight again being Sean Brady, who do you take on? Is it Kamaru Usman, the former champion, or is it the surging prospect and ultra dangerous Joaquin Buckley? Give me your answers, give me your thoughts on the welterweight title picture in the comments below. And now that we are done with the UFC London main event, let's hop into the co-main event where we arguably saw another number 1 contender fight, although this one nowhere near as decisive. But nevertheless, Carlos Ulberg's win streak now sits at 8. The Black Jag Carlos Ulberg has not lost a fight since March 6th of 2021. Over 4 years ago, he has now won 8 fights in a row, and none bigger for the state of his career than that of which he had at UFC London against the former champion Jan Blachowicz, where he gets the job done over the course of a 15-minute back-and-forth kickboxing match where he would edge Blachowicz out 29-28 across the board for the unanimous decision victory. Now, typically, when anyone goes on an 8-fight win streak, you're pretty much guaranteed to be a number 1 contender, right? Unless you're, I guess, Leon Edwards or Belal Muhammad, it takes maybe 10, 11, 12 in a row. But here in the light heavyweight division especially, if you're winning 8 in a row, you're more than likely at the top of the weight class, and that is where Carlos Ulberg will find himself come Tuesday morning, as he was ranked number 6 heading into Saturday night, and in the aftermath, after taking out the 3rd-ranked Jan Blachowicz, he'll find himself in the top 3 at 205 pounds. But is this 8-fight win streak, when you peel back the curtain and take a look at it, enough to earn a title shot in this weight class? Well, according to the Verbal Sparring community on X, 96% of you think it is not enough. And to add on to that, 83% of you don't even think that Carlos Ulberg won this fight. And you know what? I think I agree with you. I didn't think that Carlos Ulberg won this fight either. As a matter of fact, I had already had a tweet typed out talking about Jan Blachowicz' victory, bouncing back at 42, 2 shoulder surgeries, nearly 2 years off, and beating someone as dangerous as Carlos Ulberg. Then they announced that Ulberg won, and it was a unanimous decision. Not even a single judge scored the fight for Blachowicz. I was absolutely shocked at the result of this fight, and I'm not saying that it was a robbery. This was just a very closely contested fight where there honestly were no big moments for either fighter. And to me, it just felt as though Jan Blachowicz had done enough with his leg kicks, with his body work, with his head strikes. He kind of just mixed it all in perfectly, and as did Carlos Ulberg as well. But it was just so close that I felt Jan Blachowicz, at the end of the day, after 15 minutes of the fight, felt that he had just done a little bit more. All in all, when you head to the statistics page on the UFC website and see the final numbers, Ulberg did, however, outstrike Jan Blachowicz 75-59 overall and outstruck him 2 rounds to 1. The round that he lost in terms of strike numbers was round number 1, 18-15, but in round 2 he outlanded Blachowicz 29-16, and in the third and final round he outlanded him 31-25. This fight could have truly gone either way. I just felt that it had gone to Jan Blachowicz in the moment. If I went back and rewatched the fight today, I could feel that Carlos Ulberg was the rightful winner. But do you all agree with the community on X? Who do you think won this fight first off? Was it Carlos Ulberg that did enough, or was it Jan Blachowicz on the comeback after nearly 2 years away that should have halted the momentum of Ulberg on the scorecards? And secondly, and most importantly, what does this mean for Carlos Ulberg? Because as I said to start this conversation, when anyone is on an 8-fight win streak, you're more than likely right in there for a title shot, probably going to be fighting for it next. But I don't know if I think he is going to be next. I don't know if I think he has done enough based off of his last 2 fights that have been relatively lackluster against Blachowicz and against Volkan Oezdemir. His closest fights of his UFC career outside of the fight that he lost back in 2021, and they both have been against the biggest opponents. So in the big moments against the best fighters that he's faced, they've been the closest fights for Ulberg, and I'm not saying he needs to go in there and starch every single fighter that he faces, because at the end of the day, out of the 8 win streak that he's on, 5 of them have been wide way of stoppage. But I do feel like he could have pulled away a little bit more to make it more convincing, to put a stamp on it, especially against someone in Blachowicz who's 42, who's had all of the injuries and the layoffs. I mean, in terms of career trajectories, these two couldn't have been any more opposite coming into this fight, and the fact that Jan Blachowicz, in many people's eyes, won this bout says a lot. And pair kind of the drama surrounding this victory with the fact that we are pretty much guaranteed to see Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira run back a rematch for the light heavyweight title. I don't believe that that plays into the hands of Carlos Ulberg either, and I think that he's ultimately going to have to face one more opponent, and then if he wins, regardless of if it's a decision, close or decisive, or a finish, he will then get the winner of that Ankalaev versus Pereira rematch, at least assuming Pereira doesn't win, and then we get a trilogy. We'll talk about that later in the year. And who could that fighter be for Carlos Ulberg? Well, it's pretty obvious. It's Jiří Procházka. In terms of finishing capabilities, it will be the most dangerous opponent that Carlos Ulberg has ever faced. It will be the most wacky and versatile opponent that he has ever faced, and I ultimately feel that it will be the biggest threat that he will have ever faced on this journey to a UFC title shot. And if he can pass that test, if he gets through Jiří Procházka, the former champion, the multi-time title challenger, then Carlos Ulberg is in the driver's seat for a title shot. But unfortunately, in the aftermath of this fight, I do feel he's got to fight one more time, and Jiří Procházka is the guy. Next, we'll go to the featured bout of the evening where Kevin Holland got a much-needed bounce-back win, and he did it against Gunnar Nelson. And heading into this fight on Friday's preview, I said that this was the most active fighter in the UFC versus the most inactive fighter in the UFC, and to be honest with you, I think it showed. First off, it showed that Kevin Holland absolutely needs to just commit himself to the 170-pound weight class. This is where he belongs. This is where he holds the most advantages in terms of his size, his reach, his length. It's all fun and games when he goes up to 185 on short notice and takes on a Roman Dolidze or Ranier de Ritter, right? And he faces these big-name guys, but he just doesn't belong there. His physique, his body isn't meant to be at 185 pounds. He fits perfectly at 170. And in terms of the narrative versus inactivity and activity for for Holland and Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson absolutely looked exhausted in this fight. Now, to be fair, I guess his biggest moment was in the third round where he had Kevin Holland in an arm triangle choke. But Kevin, to his credit, was able to have great takedown defense for one in this fight for the most part, and submission defense. He was able to get out of the submission that he was unable to do against Ranier de Ridder. And while Holland didn't get a finish victory, he did get a very convincing and, again, much needed victory on the scorecards against Gunnar Nelson, where he went the full 15 minutes and never gassed. He's gotten a little tired in a couple of his past fights, but in this one, it was 15 complete minutes. Not to mention at the end of, I believe, round 1, Kevin Holland pretty much had Gunnar Nelson out if the fight goes 5 more seconds, but Nelson was saved by the bell. And I'm sure we'll be talking about Kevin Holland here, March 23rd when I'm recording this. If I had to guess right now, he'll be fighting before the end of July. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy did say when he fought at UFC 311 in January, he wanted to have 6 fights this year. So if he gets 3 in for the first portion of the year, it's only right to feel that he would get 3 more in the back half of the year as well. But do you want to see Kevin Holland commit and stay at 170 pounds like me? Let me know in the comments below. Big time debut for the strawweight Alexia Thainara, as not only does she get a victory over the seasoned veteran Molly McCann, but she disposes of her in the very first round with a rear naked choke submission. She has won 10 fights in a row and has finished 8 of her 12 victories overall, 7 of those 8 by way of submission, including this one over the meatball Molly McCann, who in the aftermath of this fight decided to call it a career and hang up the gloves. So first and foremost, my hat is off to meatball Molly McCann, as she gave us plenty of memories throughout her multi-year career in the UFC, including 2 back-to-back spinning back fist knockouts. At one point, her and Paddy Pimblett were pretty much the faces of European mixed martial arts, and that can never be taken away from Molly. But UFC London belonged to the enemy, Alexia Thainara from Brazil, who went into enemy territory on about a week's notice, mind you, against someone that is very dangerous and very experienced in Molly McCann. And you would have thought in the aftermath that Alexia was the 10-plus fight UFC veteran in this one. She is only 27 years old, and she is very strong, thick build, her physique is great for the 115-pound weight class. She will be able to out-wrestle, out-grapple, out-jiu-jitsu, and just out-power a lot of the upcoming strawweight matchups in her future, if you ask me. And after this victory, yes, it's only her first fight in the UFC, I think she could be put in there with a top 15 strawweight and fare pretty well, if I'm being honest with you. But we'll give her maybe 1 or 2 more fights, and if she continues this momentum that she's on, she will inevitably find herself in a big-time matchup in the 115-pound weight class. But my goodness, one of the most dominant performances of the night and a great finish over a very, very game opponent in McCann. Chris Duncan lives up to the nickname because he is, in fact, a problem. He is now 13-2 with 10 finishes, 31 years old, hailing from Scotland. He is on a back-to-back win streak, back-to-back guillotine submission victory. Somewhere Dustin Poirier is oh so proud of the work that Chris Duncan is putting in, as he cashed as a plus 300 or more underdog in this fight by submitting Jordan Vucenic in the second round with that guillotine choke. In his first trip to the Dana White Contender Series in 2021, Duncan failed in his attempt to earn a UFC contract where he would be knocked out by Slaviklaw's Vyacheslav Borshev. However, he would get another opportunity in 2022 and make good on it, where he secured a first-round knockout, and since making his debut in March of 2023, he is now 4-1 in the UFC. And his only loss was to another very problematic prospect in the lightweight division, Manuel Torres, where he got submitted in round 1. He finds himself training an American Top Team, arguably the best gym in the world for mixed martial arts. I do believe that Chris Duncan puts together another 1 or 2 more wins, and he's standing across from a top 15 lightweight. Although it wasn't the most exciting fight in the world, we did have 2 top 13 heavyweights taking on one another in the prelims very early on in the card, to be honest, which is kind of surprising because it's Marcin Tybura, the longtime UFC veteran, and the Brit that is Mick Parkin, the protege of Tom Aspinall, the training partner, the friend of Aspinall, the undefeated heavyweight, and they were buried on the prelims. I didn't quite understand that spot. However, Marcin Tybura has done it again. He halts the momentum of yet another prospect and hands Mick Parkin the first loss of his career as he gets the 29-28 unanimous decision victory across the board. Tybura's actually won 3 of his last 4 fights, and the only loss was to a top 10 heavyweight in Sergey Spivak. He's beaten back-to-back prospects in Janata Deniz and Mick Parkin, and the third win of the last 4 was against Tai Tuivasa, and he finished him in the first round with a submission. At 39 years old, Marcin Tybura continues to prove that he can go up against seasoned veterans and prospects alike and find success when he digs deeper than they do. And last but not least, Mama B, Shauna Bannon from Ireland, is now 2-1 in the UFC and now on a back-to-back win streak. This one, a submission in the second round via armbar against Puja Tomar. The 2-fight Invicta alum is 31 years old, so right in her prime. She's 7-1 overall with 3 finishes to her name, and none bigger here than getting the submission after nearly being knocked out with a nasty head kick just seconds before. She was able to get her wits about her and lock in the armbar to get the victory. I'm not sure exactly how high the ceiling is for Shauna Bannon in the strawweight division, because I'm just going to be honest, if you put her up against someone like Alexia Thainara, who got a huge win on the very same card, I would pick Thainara 9 times out of 10, maybe even 10 times out of 10. So it just depends on how much more that Shauna Bannon can improve her game and her skill set, being that she is already 31. And if she can make those improvements, then maybe she can continue to climb and become very relevant in the top 15 of the strawweight division, but I still believe we're probably 2 or 3 fights away from that. So that is it for the UFC London recap, and I want to hear all of your takeaways down in the comments below. First and foremost, what did you make of Sean Brady's amazing performance against Leon Edwards? The dominant way that he was able to maneuver around that octagon with his striking, with his grappling, and ultimately get a finish in the 4th round. The first man to ever finish Leon Edwards in his near 30-fight career. That is impressive. I want to know what you think Sean Brady will do next, whether that be sit on the sidelines, take some time away, and wait for the title picture to play out, or if he will take a fight in the meantime to remain active. Also, give your thoughts down below on Carlos Ulberg's victory over Jan Blachowicz, if you think the right man won, and what you think should be next. Is it a title fight, or is it one more fight against someone like Yuri Prochazka first? If you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Every single week, we recap the most meaningful results from every card. Heading into each weekend, we break down and discuss the best storylines and what is at stake for the biggest fights, and I'd give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platform, where every Friday and Monday, podcast episodes release on Spotify, Apple, and more. Have a great week, and I will see you all in the next video.